Here we are for part 2 of the Company of Heroes board game overview of the rules and the pieces that you use to play the game. So these are your cubes and dice that come with the game, and I'll start with the cubes here. The white cubes, you've already seen how they work in conjunction with the building board, to track your income, stockpiles, experience gained, and progression of the commander. The orange cubes are used for damage on the vehicles, because when you have damage to an infantry unit in the tray, you just remove one of the infantry. But the vehicles, you can't remove a piece of the vehicle. So you'll bring out, say this Tiger tank. Well, actually, that's not a very good example, because the Tiger tanks never take damage. So let's bring out the Stug, and say the enemy fires at it and it gets 2 damage. So you would mark the tank with 2 of the damage cubes. And I believe the health of the Stug is 3, so if it gets that 3rd hit on there, then now it's destroyed and you would remove it from the battlefield. The other aspect is some of the infantry units have the ability to repair, so they would repair 1 damage per turn, to get that back to full health. So that's how you would track the damage, the repairs, and so forth. The core game comes with 4 sets of these transparent cubes, and then the 2-player additional game, which brings you up to 6 players. It has another 2 sets, and these are the cubes that are used for the command points. So you'd use them 3 at a time to mark your movement, as you saw or will see in the maneuver phase that is coming up. The regular dice are just for marking buildings and emplacements for damage, based off the scenario setting for the structures themselves. These here dice, the white dice, are the ones you'll use the most. Of the 6 sides, 2 of them are the speed dice. You got your speed dice and you got your used speed dice. We'll see that again in that maneuver phase, and how you use the speed dice on some vehicles to give you some extra range. Then you've got the 4 types of attack, which would be infantry, armor piercing, high explosive, and flame. And when you're marking out the type of attacks that are possibly coming in, you would use those dice, and then to roll for, say, a defensive roll, any of the 2 reds would be a failure of your defensive roll, and then the 2 greens or the 2 blacks would be successful. And you'll see that in a demonstration in the damage phase part of the video. The red and the blue dice also come with the game, and they signify some different things, different upgrades, different events, like pinning or no fire or retreating. So say on your building card here for your headquarters, if you want to upgrade your mortar, it does 1 HE attack. You can upgrade it to do a 2nd attack, or you can upgrade, you can upgrade it to give it 1 more health. So what that would look like, here's your mortar team there. So if you do the upgrade to give it an extra HE, you would put that extra dice in there. So now you know that it gets 2 HE shots. And probably a better way to do that would be to just go ahead and do that. Because when you add your extra health, you're just going to add another guy. That signifies your mortar team now has 4, can take 4 damage as opposed to 3 as it was before. So that's a simple maneuver there. Some other things you can do, say you got this infantry squad and you wanted to upgrade, based off your headquarters building card. for an extra sight and extra range on your fire. So you would put this dice on there, and that signifies that the standard infantry fires can see and fire 2 hexes away, 1, 2. So now with an upgrade, now they can see and fire 3, 1, 2, 3, which becomes a huge advantage, as you'll see as you play the game. So these, like I said, the blue and the red dice come with the game. The green dice, that came with one of the expansions. I believe that was the Stug Assault Pack that came with the 4 Stugs, this set of green dice, and some more commander cards. And these also do various things for infantry and vehicles, like a vehicle that's going to get a +1. Well, you can't add, an extra figure or an extra tank, so you would put that marker, with the tank. Don't necessarily have to be on it, but just by it. So that means now the Tiger tank has an extra +1, which is always a benefit. And then extra sight or extra fire range, same thing there. So these are the dice and the cubes that basically run the game as far as on the board and tell you about your attacks, about special features for upgrades that you've done, and then also some penalties that may occur during the combat, like the pin would be a penalty. As I'm looking through here, it's not that that's a penalty, but that signifies a camouflage upgrade. Or if you had snipers, they automatically have the camouflage. Smoke could block a hex, for vision, for line of sight and such. So those are the dice, those are the cubes. Let's move on to the next section, and we'll go from there. The setup. So you choose your map from the mission booklet, which you want to play, which map, which scenario. Set up your, not battle board, building board. Too much Axis and Allies there. Set it up to the starting income stockpile. Choose your nation. So here we have the U.S. Headquarters, and from there your starting setup is 2 infantry type units. So I've chosen, just for this demonstration, 1 infantry and then 1 mortar squad, which is the only 2 types available on your tier 1 headquarters, as tier 2 and 3 have not been unlocked. So easy to identify your infantry as green. So you see the green heart with the number there, that's the health. That green tells you it's infantry. The yellow is light vehicles, your half-tracks, trucks, jeeps. Tanks are your red. Purple is your emplacements, sandbags, machine gun bunkers, whatnot. And then, of course, the building is the different buildings that are on the board. So that's your type of units. Your setup is you start with 2 infantry of your choice. So you could do 2 regular infantry, which might not be a bad idea to start the game, just because this needs a spotter. The mortar unit needs a spotter, and the infantry is what can spot. So you have to have him on the front and then him behind. So it's not a bad tandem to start with. Or if you had 2 infantry and then followed up, with your first build as a mortar team, to get the 2 infantry out into different locations. So you've chosen your country. You're going to be playing the U.S. You've got your building board set up. One thing I didn't bring over here is these commander cards. I'll go grab those before we get started. With going through the rules, and there's about a dozen or so that you get to choose from, and I'll explain that here a little bit. That's kind of like in the advanced rules. They want you to start off with the basic rule setup for the first game, which makes sense to get the feel for the gameplay. Now on the board, everything's printed on there. There's a sandbag emplacement. There's a manpower, resource, building. These designate types of cover. The red, I think, is the hill, like a cliff that you cannot, like or a small bluff, so you can't cross that, infantry or vehicles. You can see over it, shoot over it, but it's steep enough that you can't cross it. Then the light green would be like light cover, and the dark green would be your buildings. There's also a bunker in the middle, and the bunker itself, you see, has a victory point hex to it. So whoever owns the bunker gets that victory point, so that the whole idea, well, this map is called, let me see, Hill 331. So as you look over the whole map, basically this bunker's at the top of the hill, and you've got these certain hexes sides that you can't cross that are red, indicating you're going up in the elevation, and of course then around here is different defense structures. I think here's a trench and some wooden barricades, almost like sandbags. So you can play the game without terrain, but it's kind of neat to add. Put in your bunker there, and throw up. Where would you put a house? Here you put a house. Sandbag emplacement right here. Of course, this one also is a resource hex, so you'd put your flag there, and over here you got a couple more, so you'll put your empty flags, put those out so that it's easy to see what points you want to capture. And I'm sure I've missed, here's another victory hex and another building. I just didn't bring them over here. So I'll put some of those on when we go through the first part of the round, which will be the maneuver phase. So your setup, you can do it, like I said, with or without the terrain effects. I just like the terrain effects just because I have them. And of course these, you'll, whoop, got a little too close there, got blurry. So you can put a red or blue flag on there based on whichever your team is to signify that you have captured it, because you don't, once you move into it and capture it, then you can move on and it just stays yours until the enemy captures it, or maybe they never do if you're lucky. So let's look at the first order of the round, and that is the maneuver phase. So that is the end of part 2 of the overview of the rules for Company of Heroes board game. Look forward to part 3 coming up shortly.